Momura. Homura Akemi before she became the hardened warrior we know. The shy, timid girl with glasses, filled with innocence and an unwavering admiration for Madoka Kaname. But what if she never changed? What if the Momura we first met never transformed into the darker, colder version of herself? In this speculative journey, we'll explore how the events of Madoka Magica, Rebellion, and the Wraith Arc might have unfolded differently if Momura retained her softness and innocence. If Momura never transformed, the events of the original anime would change as well. In each timeline, instead of gradually becoming the fierce protector that we saw, Momura would remain the shy, soft-spoken girl from the start. Her hesitancy would lead to missed opportunities and crucial mistakes. In battle against witches and during the fight against Walpurgisnacht, Momura would struggle to take decisive action. The result would likely be devastating without the battle experience and hard-earned knowledge that came from the repeated time loops. Momura might fail to stop Walpurgisnacht in an even worse way, leading to more tragic outcomes. The Madoka we know might be forced to make her final wish sooner, without Homura's desperate attempts to prevent it, resulting in Madoka ascending as the law of cycles but at a greater personal cost to herself and the world. The story of Madoka Magica begins innocently enough, with Madoka Kaname living an ordinary life until she's drawn into the world of magical girls. In the original timeline, battle-hardened Homura arrives as a mysterious transfer student, warning Madoka not to become a magical girl. She is cold, distant, and focused on her mission to protect Madoka at all costs. But what if it was Momura who appeared instead? Momura, still shy and hesitant, would not be the assertive protector Madoka needed. She would struggle to convey her warnings, unsure of how to express the gravity of the situation. Instead of outright warning Madoka to stay away from Kyubey, Momura would likely approach her more gently, asking her to be careful without giving away too much. Madoka might sense that Momura is worried, but without the stern, direct warnings of the hardened Homura, she would be less inclined to heed the danger. The dream sequences where Madoka sees Homura fighting would still happen, but Madoka might dismiss it as just a strange dream, not realizing its deeper significance. Next up, we have Madoka and Sayaka meeting Kyubey and their growing curiosity about becoming magical girls. Madoka and Sayaka encountering Kyubey, the mysterious creature that offers them the chance to become magical girls. In the original timeline, Homura intervenes decisively, trying to prevent Kyubey from making his contract with Madoka. However, Momura lacks the assertiveness and confidence to confront Kyubey directly. She might follow Madoka and Sayaka from a distance, too afraid to confront the incubator head-on. Momura's hesitation gives Kyubey more time to tempt Madoka and Sayaka. Without Homura's intervention, the girls would be more and more curious about the power Kyubey offers, unknowingly inching closer to making a fateful contract. Kyubey would sense Momura's timid personality and likely exploit it, knowing that she would not pose the same threat as her future self. Momura may have a better relationship with Mami in this timeline than her original self does in the anime, since Mami in past timelines attempted to take Homura under her wing, and this would likely happen since Momura does not have the cold, distant demeanor of the original Homura from the anime, which would result in Mami letting Homura into the group with her, Sayaka, and Madoka. But any warnings of Kyubey from Momura would fall on deaf ears due to Momura's inability to assert herself. Next up, we have the infamous battle with the witch Charlotte. The tragedy of Mami Tomoe's death unfolds. In the original timeline, battle-hardened Homura arrives just in time to save Madoka and Sayaka after Mami is killed by Charlotte. Her calm, composed demeanor allows her to act swiftly, saving the others from certain doom. But with Momura instead of hardened Homura, the situation becomes more perilous. Momura, overwhelmed by the battle and terrified for her friends, would struggle to act in time. She might freeze in fear, unable to save Mommy. Worse still, she would be too late to even prevent Charlotte from attacking Madoka and Sayaka, leading to an even greater catastrophe. Without Homura's experience and quick thinking, it's possible that both Madoka and Sayaka would fall prey to the witches at this early stage. Momura's inability to take decisive action could lead to their deaths, at the very least push them closer to contracting with Kyubey out of desperation to protect themselves. Next up, we have Sayaka deciding to become a magical girl to save Kyosuke, her determination pushing her toward her contract. In the original timeline, Homura tries to dissuade Sayaka, warning her about the consequences of making a contract with Kyubey, but Momura, with her softer approach, would struggle to be as firm. She might talk to Sayaka, but her warnings would lack the force necessary to stop her. Sayaka, driven by her love for Kyosuke, would likely make the contract anyway, without fully understanding the cost. Momura would watch helplessly as Sayaka becomes a magical girl, knowing that she could not protect her from the inevitable despair that would follow. Next up, when Kyoko arrives, she quickly becomes a threat to the other magical girls. In the original timeline, Homura intervenes in Kyoko and Sayaka's fight, preventing them from destroying each other, but Momura would struggle to step in. Her timid nature and fear of confrontation would leave her to standing on the sidelines, unable to stop the conflict. The fight between Kyoko and Sayaka would escalate, potentially leading to more destruction and pushing Sayaka closer to her breaking point. Without Homura's intervention, the battle would have far more devastating consequences, perhaps even leading to Sayaka's early demise. There's even a small chance that Madoka could even make a wish during Kyoko and Sayaka's confrontation. In this timeline, if you remember in the original anime, Kyubey had encouraged Madoka to make a wish in order to stop Kyoko and Sayaka from fighting before Homura actually intervenes in the fight. With Momura's being involved in this particular timeline and not her battle-hardened self, because of the fact that Momura would be too timid to take any action, there is a really good chance that this could actually be the moment where Kyubey actually convinces Madoka to actually make a magical girl contract in order for her to get in between Sayaka and Kyoko and stop the two from fighting. In fact, what do you guys think would have happened at this point in the story if Madoka had actually made a wish to stop Sayaka and Kyoko from fighting? Like, what would her wish be? Could it be something interesting, like Madoka wishing for Sayaka and Kyoko to become friends? That kind of seems like something Madoka would do, considering she also once made a wish to save a cat in an earlier timeline, because she's all about love and harmony and peace. So it would be interesting. What kind of wish do you guys think would happen if Madoka had done this at this stage? Next up, Sayaka's descent into despair after realizing the true cost of becoming a magical girl. Sayaka's mental state begins to unravel in the original timeline once the cost of becoming a magical girl is revealed through the girls finding out about soul gems. Momura, still clinging to her innocence, would try to comfort Sayaka with kindness. Unfortunately, this gentle approach would likely do little to help Sayaka, who is consumed by the injustice of her situation and the emotional pain of her unrequited love. Sayaka's despair would continue to grow, and she would spiral further and further until she inevitably transforms into a witch. This part of the story would remain unchanged. However, Momura would be even more powerless than Homura to stop this tragic transformation. Her compassion, unable to prevent the harsh reality of the magical girl system from taking its toll on Sayaka. Basically, she would be even less effective than how Homura was. Next up, Kyoko and Momura potentially attempting to work together to save Sayaka along with Madoka. This, of course, would parallel with what takes place in the original series, where Homura and Kyoko are seen working together, mostly toward the end of the Sayaka Kyoko confrontation. Kyoko tries to form an alliance with Momura in an attempt to save Sayaka. Unlike battle-hardened Homura, who was willing to take extreme measures to stop Sayaka from becoming a witch, Momura would desperately cling to the hope that Sayaka could be saved without resorting to violence. This hope would ultimately be in vain. Kyoko, frustrated by Homura's indecisiveness, might take matters into her own hands, attempting to stop Sayaka herself. After Sayaka becomes a witch, Kyoko tries to work with Madoka in the original anime timeline to bring Sayaka back to her senses. However, this does not work, and Homura in the original timeline arrives to take Madoka away from the battle while Kyoko sacrifices herself. However, in this version, Momura would have likely come along with both Madoka and Kyoko. After Kyoko gets frustrated with Momura's indecisiveness, this could result in Madoka losing her life due to Momura's timid personality, though there's also a possibility she might just barely save Madoka after Madoka passes out, which would still result in Kyoko losing her life. It's just more of a toss-up with Momura on if she would have been able to save Madoka or if Madoka would have died in this particular situation. And now we move on to the climactic battle against Walpurgisnacht, where Madoka makes her final wish to become a godlike figure and rewrite the universe. The situation reaches its breaking point with Walpurgisnacht's arrival into the original timeline. Homura fights the witch alone, determined to protect Madoka, even if it cost her her life, but Momura, still filled with fear and doubt, would be far less effective in battle. She would try her best, but her inexperience and lack of confidence would leave her vulnerable. Madoka, seeing Momura struggle, would feel compelled to make her final wish earlier than in the original timeline. She would wish to become a magical girl and rewrite the universe just as she did before. But without Momura's cold determination to protect her, the wish might come at a higher cost. Perhaps if Momura never transformed into her darker self, the events of rebellion would have never occurred. The demon Homura would never be born, and Madoka's assertion as law of cycles would remain unchallenged. Momura would accept Madoka's sacrifice, allowing her to become a cosmic force of salvation. In this scenario, we might imagine a world that never descends into the chaos and manipulation brought on by Devil Homura's possessive love. Momura's innocence would create a world built on love, trust, and self-sacrifice. But this is not a world without its losses. Momura, having never experienced the torment that turned her into Devil Homura, would perhaps never understand the price of her innocence. Her life would be simpler, quieter, but the friends she fought so hard to save might remain lost to the cruel cycle of fate. She would live in a world of peace, but it would be a peace haunted by the ghost of what could have been. The events of the Wraith Arc would also be drastically altered by Momura's continued innocence. In the original timeline, Momura plays a pivotal role in combating the Wraiths, her experience and knowledge allowing her to fight effectively along the other magical girls, but Momura, still hesitant and unsure of herself, would struggle to keep up. In the Wraith Arc, Momura would struggle significantly more than her hardened counterpart. Without the experience and cold resolve of her older self, she would be far less effective helping the other magical girls fend off the Wraiths. The lack of skill and hesitation would have dire consequences, not just for her, but for all the other magical girls. they would be overwhelmed by the Wraiths much sooner, with many of them falling in battle far earlier than they did in the original timeline. Momura herself would be especially vulnerable to the Wraith's ability to absorb magical energy. With her being emotionally fragile and her lack of experience, her power would be drained faster, leaving her increasingly powerless. And it is in this weakened state that Wraith Madoka, a false version of Madoka created by the Wraiths, would strike. In the original timeline, Homura resisted the fake Madoka for a time, her loneliness and despair eventually causing her to break, but Momura, filled with an innocence, longing for her friend and lacking the strength to resist, would fall prey to Wraith Madoka's deceptions much faster. Unlike Homura, who was able to hold off until her heart gave in to despair of Madoka's absence, Momura would not have the same resilience. The Wraith Madoka, using her charm and appearance to mimic the real Madoka, would seduce Momura into believing that she had found her lost friend. In this moment of vulnerability, take her emotional energy with little to no resistance from Momura, Wraith Madoka would steal Homura's remaining energy, leaving her as an empty shell, a mere puppet clinging to the illusion of her friend. Meanwhile, the Wraiths, enamored by their victory, would continue to ravage the world. Without Momura's protection, the remaining magical girls would fall, their souls devoured by the Wraiths as they conquer humanity and steal the emotions of every living being. In this tragic timeline, Momura would remain a hollow remnant of her former self, living in a broken world ruled by the Wraiths. She would continue to exist by the side of the fake Wraith Madoka, a puppet living under the illusion of love and companionship, while the real Madoka remained forever out of reach. The world, however, would be doomed, humanity left to the mercy of the Wraiths until nothing remained. In the original timeline, after Madoka's assertion as the law of cycles, Kyubey devised a plan in rebellion to study the law of cycles itself. By trapping Homura in an artificial world, Kyubey sought to manipulate her and eventually capture Madoka when she came to rescue Homura. This was meant to allow Kyubey to study the mechanism behind the law of cycles, unraveling its mysteries for his own ends. However, Homura's transformation into the demon prevented Kyubey from achieving his goal, and she essentially wrestled control of the universe to protect Madoka from both Kyubey and herself. But what if Momura had never hardened into the demon Homura? Without her darker transformation, the key events of rebellion would still occur. Kyubey would trap Momura in an artificial world, and without the cold, calculating version of herself, Momura would be unable to stop Kyubey from capturing Madoka when she descends to bring Momura into the law of cycles. The result? Kyubey would finally achieve his goal of studying and understanding the law of cycles. With Momura's innocence intact, there would be no interference from a demon Homura, and the incubators would succeed in controlling the law of cycles. This reality would usher in an age where Kyubey and his race possessed knowledge far beyond what they originally sought. The consequences of such power in the hands of beings as cold and as indifferent as the incubators would result in drastic changes to the magical girl system. The hope that Madoka's sacrifice represented would be twisted into something far more darker, and the balance of the universe would tip. Momura's innocence would create a world built on love, but Kyubey's success in understanding the law of cycles would result in the distortion of Madoka's sacrifice. The magical girl system might be corrupted by the incubator's newfound power, forcing Madoka to endure endless manipulation, and all the while Momura would remain unaware of the true cost of her innocence, as Kyubey's cold calculations would control the fate of magical girls everywhere. Without Homura's interference, Kyubey's true plan in rebellion would have unfolded without resistance. He would successfully capture Madoka as she descends to guide magical girls to the law of cycles, trapping her within a barrier to study her divine powers. Momura, lacking the ruthlessness of her hardened self, would be unable to stop Kyubey from acting on his plan. Kyubey would now have access to the secrets of the law of cycles, manipulating it to further his own goals. Magical girls across the universe would become mere subject in his grand experiment, and with no one left to protect them from his actions, Momura, too soft and innocent to fight back, would be powerless to stop him. The price of innocence is steep. Without the hardened resolve of battle-worn Homura, the world would have fallen into Kyubey's hands, and the hope that magical girls once represented would have been twisted into something far more dark. Momura's gentleness and compassion, while admirable, would leave the world vulnerable to forces far beyond her understanding. In this timeline, the incubators would gain control over the very thing that was supposed to liberate magical girls, the law of cycles, and without the darkness of demon Homura, the world would become a prison for hope itself. So what if Momura never changed? It is a scenario that asks us to question the balance between strength and innocence, between love and sacrifice. Momura might have been able to save the world with her compassion, but the true cost of such innocence would leave the world vulnerable to forces far beyond her understanding. Without the demon Homura's interference, the incubators might have gained control over the very thing that was supposed to liberate magical girls, the law of cycles, and in doing so, the world would have become a prison, not for Madoka, but for the hope that magical girls once represented. Is the cost of innocence worth it? Or do we all need to embrace the darkness to truly protect those we care about? And that about brings us to the end of the video. I want to thank you guys for sticking through to the very end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. If you love Madoka Magica theories, comment below. What do you think of the idea of Momura never changing? Was there something you really liked about this particular theory, or something that I didn't touch on that you would have liked to have seen touched on? What are your personal theories about how the timeline would have gone if Momura had never changed to become Homura? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any theory requests, let me know down there as well. Yeah, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye!